Welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Dave Thomas is a Welsh writer, performer, and recording artist. Dave began playing in his first group, Skid Row, but perhaps he's best known as a member of Blonde on Blonde, who released 3 albums from the period 1969 to 1971, Dave playing on the second and third albums. He has also played in the bands Rain, Shortstuff, Double Trouble, and the Diplomatics, along with fronting his own band. Over his career, Dave has been supported by Fleetwood Mac, played at the Knebworth Greenbelt Festival, and played at the Texas Embassy for Paul McCartney in commemoration of Buddy Holly. More recently, Mr. Thomas has worked with Dave Greenslade of Colosseum and Greenslade and on a couple of albums as well. Mr. Thomas has produced several critically acclaimed albums, and today my guest still performs live as a solo artist as well as fronting his own band, the Dave Thomas Band. Well, welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me. Very gratifying that people are still interested in this old man's steady.
Right, I hear that. That doing these, I hear that quite a bit. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And you'll be finding, I'm sure you found a lot of the younger fans too that are discovering your music as well. So
yes, and I'm really very gratified about that. And also, of course, there's hardly ever a band lineup that I'm in these days where I'm not the oldest in the band. I think the only exception to that is Dave Greenslade, who's ahead of me by a few years.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you're older and wiser. So there you go. Yes.
Well, the jury is out on that, you know.
Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Newport in South Wales, in Monmouthshire, which was a thriving dock town. Certainly, when I was born in 1951, and it was shortly after the Second World War. And my earliest memories include lots of bits and pieces that connected me to that. For example, there used to be a weekly parade in the town that you could listen to and go and see. They used to test the air raid sirens still. When I was 5 years old and I went to my first elementary school, I think you might call it, but primary school, we call them, same thing. They didn't have milk for us. They had milk tablets because rationing was over, but things were being phased back in, and
yes.
so
How
milk
interesting.
tablets. Yeah.
Would you dissolve those in water or what?
No, just suck them.
You just suck. Oh, okay. Yeah. And you would get all the ingredients and everything you needed from milk.
I believe you did, or enough to do good stuff to your young bones. And it didn't last long. It was, I think, probably just my first term or two, and then they had real milk in lovely little bottles for us.
They were still tested. They were just doing the sirens and the alarms even that many years after the war.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Well, do you recall hearing music in the household early on?
I'll tell. It's a good place. It's a good place to start. Yes, I recall hearing music in the house in the early days because there was a piano in the hall. I lived in a very large, semi-detached Victorian house, which was owned by my uncle, and my uncle and aunt ran a corner shop business. And my mother and father brought me up as well, but my mother was the youngest of 13 children.
Ooh.
And her father died when she was only 16, I think. So Charles, my uncle, kind of took over when she was 16 as the sort of continuation of the father role model, kind of thing. And my aunt Ev, who played the piano, she was a Devon girl, from the farming
Oh, okay.
country down in the West Country, and she was the one that played the piano. And of course, I'm piecing this together again with the benefit of hindsight. But I remember the piano. We also had a lodger who was like my substitute grandmother. She had been what do you call it? She played the organ in a little Baptist chapel high on a hill in a place called King Coed near Raglan, which again is it's right on the edge of Wales, that sort of thing. Um, uh, I can't remember the name of the instrument. It'll come back to me, but there was music in the house, and I remember, even now I can remember this. My father, who loved me dearly, he bought me my first tin drum.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, and of course I loved that, and we lived in the upstairs bit of the house, and I remember running, up and down along the corridor, banging this tin drum like fury.
Yeah.
And then one day it just wasn't there anymore. And of course, I was confused and saddened, but I was too young to to guess what might have happened to it. And then a bit later, my dad could see how upset I was, so he bought me a plastic saxophone. Now, this
Oh,
plastic saxophone was even louder than the
I
tin.
was gonna ask you.
Yeah, yeah. So I had that for a few days, and then that went missing, and I was quite distraught. So they bought me a kitten,
Oh,
and the kitten lasted a week, and then
oh.
that was gone.
Well, it was hard to play the kitten, wasn't it? Do you play it this way or do
I,
you?
I,
you
I tried everything. I couldn't get a sound out of it. Um, and the piano in the hall went missing, at some point. Um, and it was years later that I discovered the truth of this. My uncle, he was a dear man, but he was quite severe and definitely the head of the household, really. He didn't like loud noise,
Okay, okay.
and he had enough of music. He was the wicked ogre that sort of got rid of these things.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but at the age of 7, he relented, and it must have been guilt. It must have been. But he bought me my first harmonica. So it was
Oh,
a harmonica that was the first instrument that I
oh,
really got to grips
okay.
with. Yeah.
Okay, and it's like, well, let's see, the harmonic is a little quieter. It's not as loud as the drum.
No, not much.
Okay, I guess yeah, yeah, depending on how you play it, right?
Well, the backstory to it was that my aunt played piano, and my uncle he was one of 10 brothers, and I discovered that they were a Welsh male voice choir down in the dock area where they lived. So I think it the music reminded him of his own youth, which for various reasons it was time for him to leave behind, and maybe he was saddened in some way by it. So,
Yeah.
but he did. He bought me my first harmonica, and that kicked me off big time.
Okay, all right. Well, you mentioned 13 children. I thought my mother, she came from a family of 9. I thought that was a lot, but 13, wow.
No, it
It's
is
like,
a lot.
is
Yeah.
like, did they have time for the parent for anything else? They were
Because
busy. They were.
there was a late rumor. I don't know how true it is, but my grandfather was rumored to have a second family in the north of the country, because we're talking. He was a merchant seaman,
Oh,
and
okay.
of course, by that time they had the God's wonderful railway, the Great Western Railway. So people were a bit more mobile than you might think. So,
Yeah.
whether that's true or it's best I don't know. I think.
Yes, probably so. Well,
So, funnily enough, I'm an only child.
and then after that, you're the only
Yeah,
child.
yeah,
Wow. From one extreme to the other.
yeah.
Yes. Right. Well, was okay. So you talk about your early instrumentation playing. Can you remember one of the first singles or albums that you got?
Oh, that I bought. Yes, I
Yeah.
can. The very first album I bought was a compilation album, blues album, because I'd heard some. There was a TV program that used to air in on BBC television um, uh, at 6 o'clock. It was a kind of news program, but they used to feature all sorts of entertainers at different times. And I remember seeing Memphis Slim on one episode, and I saw Sonny Boy Williamson on another one, Bryce Miller, and I was completely and absolutely bewitched by this because there was a depth and a reality that I'd not heard in any of the music I'd heard up to that point, really. Um, and as a result of that, I went out and I persuaded my dad to buy me my first LP. It was a compilation with Memphis Slim, John Lee Hooker, and Jimmy Reed,
Oh, okay.
which I still have to this day.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, John.
and,
John.
and, and the very next one was a Jimmy Reed album because I just loved that sort of old, completely Chicago style relaxed blues, and of course it was a great place for me to start to teach myself to do the basics.
Yes, that's yes. Yeah, I've in doing these interviews, I hear that the blues, how influential
Yeah,
that was for so many musicians over there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yes. Right, right. Well, can you remember one of the first live shows that you attended that you went to?
um, yes. Um, I went to some of the local shows in my hometown, of course, and the best blues band by far, probably in South Wales, was called the Cellar Set, and the Cellar Set had Gareth Johnson on guitar, Richard Hopkins on bass, and Les Hicks on drums. They were a blues band, and I got introduced to them by my mother and father, who used a pub called the Bridge, where they used to sometimes rehearse upstairs. And they were quite a bit older than me, but that was the first link. So it was blues. They had a great singer called Keith Milne, who was a little bit like our Welsh version of Eric Burden.
Oh, okay.
Very emotional singer, and he's a friend to this day. We're in touch
Oh,
still.
is that right? You've stayed in touch that whole time. That
Well, no, we got back in touch, sort of
oh,
right at the back end for various reasons. But that was the first one that really, again, impressed me. But when I was 12 or 12 years old, I think they used to let me get up with my little band Skid Row and play in the interim while they took a break and ran to the nearest pub and then back. I started pretty early, and Gareth let me play his guitar, which was a lovely, lovely blonde harmony guitar.
yes,
And I thought, yeah, I've got to
yeah.
get started with this.
Right
Yeah,
now, Gareth is a Welsh name too, as well.
yeah. That Blonde on Blonde. It was that Welsh band that
Yeah,
moved up to London and became Blonde on Blonde.
right, right. I just recognize that name, Gareth. Gareth. Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk about Skid Row. How young were you in that band?
Uh, we kicked off when I was 12, I think, and by the time I was 13, I had my little band Skid Row, and we were playing in some completely insalubrious joints in the docks in Newport, where I was born, and we used to go up the valleys and play in working men's clubs and stuff like
Well,
that.
how did your parents feel about that?
Well, it was it was kind of neatly controlled because my guitarist Steve Ralph, his father was an ex-military policeman, and he was a policeman in Newport. And I remember the first gig we did. I think it was in the Tredegar Working Men's Club. He helped us in with the gear, and we were just getting up on stage, and he just got a piece of 2x4 and hammered it down on the stage and gave an evil look to anybody that was anywhere near. And it was just a warning, don't
Uh-huh.
even think about messing with my boys. So we were kind of well looked after, really. There was no,
Okay. You had your own security with you.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, talk a little bit about was there an upcoming music scene there around you around that time?
Yes, yeah, and funnily enough, again, I'm at this late stage, I'm making all sorts of connections with Welsh musicians I knew of, but of course, we all formed our own bands, and some did really well, but some went in different directions. Um, the other people I was aware of quite early on, a band called Amen Corner
Yes,
with
yes.
Andy Fairweatherlow and Alan Jones on sax, who's a friend now. Um, they were a big band. There was another band called Pieces of Mind, and another one called the Sundowners. But I'm learning more about that early Welsh, rise in rhythm and blues, really. And I was invited to a funeral celebration quite recently, um, and a guy called golly, his second name is Byron. I can't remember his first name now. I didn't know him personally, but he played drums in Amen Corner in the early days. But later, who would he team up with? He was the main drummer with the Bee Gees, so
Oh,
huge success. And at the same funeral, I was sitting right next to Terry Williams. Terry Williams was a phenomenal drummer. I don't think he's working these days. I don't think, but he was with a band called Man, who were a great.
man, I was going to say, right, man. And
But but
Deke Leonard has passed away, right? Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But Terry Williams went on to be the main drummer for years with Dire Straits.
Dire
So,
Straits.
so
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
and of course Andy Fairweatherlow has been working with Eric Clapton for years now, and
Yes.
with George Harrison. So
Yes.
there's this little Welsh. Well, it's bigger than you think. A lot of cracking Welsh musicians who've done all sorts of things at all sorts of different levels. But we still see each other and get together at a great venue in Cardiff called the Earl Hague,
Oh,
which is run by musicians, kind of for musicians,
yeah.
and it's just wonderful at this late
That's
stage.
that's the best kind of gig too, for
Yeah,
musicians, by the
yeah.
musicians, like you said. Yeah,
Oh,
I remember Paradise is Half as Nice. Remember that track? What a song! That's a nice
my
song.
my real favourite is Gin House.
Oh, okay. I think I know which one you're. I think I am
Yeah,
familiar with that one.
even earlier, straight
Yeah.
blues song. That's all it was.
Right, right. Wow. Yeah, and man, what a band, man.
Great.
Yes, yes. Well, well, you were with Skid Row. What type of music would you guys play?
We'd play a couple of Stones songs from the early two albums because that was really hot stuff then. By that time, I was already big time into blues, so we'd do a lot of Jimmy Reed songs. Um, I used to kick off with a Memphis Slim song
Oh,
even in those days, without a piano, of course,
yeah.
called Sassy May. Um, so we were kind of rhythm and blues band, but there were still a lot of teddy boys around, and we used to get booked for dances, and because they would dance to the rhythm and blues stuff,
Yeah.
and they kind of liked us. We were a bit of a novelty, being 13 years old or whatever. And I played at there was a Caribbean club in the docks, and they liked us there as well. And I thought these guys are going to like the blues because we're down in the basement. And the first time I went down there, I thought, where am I? All I could see were little glowing whites, and of course it was the whites of the eyes of these black guys.
Oh,
But
yeah,
but they never heard the blues at all. They were all Caribbeans,
yeah.
so they were into ska music and stuff. But they were lovely. They were completely welcoming and looked after us again, and
Yeah.
danced and just danced to it. It's great fun.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, ska and that rock steady,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and then reggae. Eventually reggae.
well, yeah,
Brought
so,
that over to the UK. Wow,
yeah,
how interesting. Well, I wanted to ask you about Skid Row because there was the Irish band Skid Row.
yes.
Was that around the same time, or which came
Um,
first?
I think oddly mine would have come first just because I was so young. Uh,
Okay.
but it was I just heard it and I just loved the concept. It sounded pretty bluesy. It was pretty pretentious, really. Sort of Skid Row, the place where the drunks went to hang out.
Right.
New York applied to a bunch of middle class 13-year-old white boys, but
Yes.
I didn't think it through really, but it worked for a short time.
Yes, yes. Well, story goes that you joined Blonde on Blonde, replacing Ralph Denyer
Hmm.
in time to record the band's second album, Rebirth.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Okay. Released on Ember Records.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you recall the sessions, recording sessions?
All too well. Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
No, I'm good, but
Yeah.
hey, I was 18 years old when I joined the band. Um, I was due to go to university in Leeds to read for a degree in English and philosophy, and I was 2 weeks away from taking off for my university course. My mother had a trunk all ready for me, all packed and everything.
It's,
2 weeks before I was due to leave, Blonde on Blonde came back to Wales. They were based in London then, and Ralph had decided to move on and form his own band called Aquila, and they wanted another singer. And Gareth had worked with me before he went up to London in a little blues outfit, and he persuaded the others that I'd be a good bet for the job, really. So um, they said would I join them, and they were a very successful rock band at that stage. They were, you know, on the main touring circuit, mainly playing in universities and clubs all across Britain, and they'd done the Isle of Wight festival in '68 or '69 or whatever it was, the one with Dylan.
yes.
So they were pretty high profile. So when they asked me to join them, for me it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, yeah.
My mother was a little less impressed, and she framed my students' union card, put it on the mantelpiece where it stayed for 8 years, like an accusing.
Yes, look, if it doesn't work out, look.
Yeah. But having said that, she was so supportive. I'd be off with the band all over England, mainly England, um, and get back 4 or 5 in the morning, and mother would be sitting up in the chair waiting for me to get back. I mean, she was great, really.
Is that right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Yes.
that happened for a while.
Yeah.
Then she finally got used to the fact that I was that I was gone, really.
Yeah.
But I was so close to them, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. That's nice to hear. Yes. Well, I really like, as far as the album goes, I think my favorite track is Castles in the Sky.
So
Uh,
that's the one that they hoped would be a big hit single for us. It did get to be Tony Blackburn's record of the week,
oh,
which
okay.
was probably kiss of death for a prog band, really. But there you go.
Is that right? You didn't want to be associated with Tony.
Well, no, looking back, I'm delighted, really. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think that was the only song we didn't write. That was a song written by the wife of a BBC producer that was involved in with us at that time, and we were gearing up to do a TV series, and that was a lot of the sort of thing that persuaded Ember to offer us the contract. I think we were also offered a contract right at that same time by CBS, and to this day, I think our biggest error was not signing with CBS, because I think that would have, if anything, could have got us over to the USA. That would have,
Yeah.
um, but
That was,
we were ready to record, and we would have had to have waited about 6 months to record. So we took the Ember route. But I,
right.
I, I was kind of I was quite kind of happy about that because they had BB King was being released on Ember Records, Backtrack Records, and Glenn Campbell.
Yeah.
So I thought, if we're alongside a couple of people like this can't be too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had a good roster of bands
Yes. Oh
on
yeah. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah.
and well, the sessions you were gonna talk about a little bit.
Sorry, yes. Okay, so early in, very early in January, I think, in 1970. I joined late in 69, but in 70 we were up to London to record in a huge, great studio in near Highbury, near the Arsenal ground. Um, uh, and I forget, I should remember the name of it. Um, I forget the name of it, but it was a famous studio that was big enough to record orchestras and all that sort of stuff. And because it was my first time, and I was pretty nervous, in a booth all on my own, sort of singing to
Yeah.
this backing track. But
Yes.
I managed to make a pretty good job of it, I think.
Yeah. It's a little intimidating the first time.
Well, yeah, at first it was
Yeah.
scary because
Yeah.
the guys in the band had already made, an album. They were 6 or 7 years older than me, so it was a real baptism by fire.
Right.
But it was interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I remember when we were recording that album, um, uh, there was an Robert Fripp was using the same studio, and I remember him in the middle of recording Cat Food, the track.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah,
How interesting. Yeah. And the people that you'll pass, in these studios that are also recording there, they hear interesting stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That as well. I like another track I like off of the second album is Heart Without a Home. That's another one that I
We we liked that. We would have preferred that to be the single, really,
okay.
mainly because it was written by us, or mainly it was Gareth Johnson's song, that one. But that was a much more representative thing of the band at the time, and we used to do that live. I don't think we ever did Castles in the Sky live. And when we were recording it, there's a backing choir on it, which is basically me a lot, plus the tea lady or anybody we could grab that was in the studio. Um, and we did try to use a lady called Rosetta Hightower to help us.
Oh, Rosetta Hightower.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah, and we recorded with her in a studio in Soho called Trinity. But
yes.
for some reason, that one, it just didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah.
But she was a lovely lady. She was great.
Right. Immigrant from the U.S. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right, right. Wow. Well, and then one more track, excuse me, I like is November. I like that one.
That was one of the first tracks that I'd written. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
and I'll be honest about this. I loved a band called the Incredible String Band.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
and a particular favourite song of mine, uh, that I liked of theirs rather, was called October Song, which
Oh,
I still do these days. But certainly, when I'm in my acoustic set, and I just thought, you know, I think that there's got to be shelf room for something called November. So that
right.
that got me going on that one. It was that simple, really.
Is that right? Is that how
Yeah,
that came to be? Yes. Well, I'm more of a fall, autumn person myself. So,
me too.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I really am. When the leaves are changing and
It's
that kind of
lovely.
thing. Yes, and the air is crisp and that kind of thing.
Where do you live exactly?
Uh, but we don't. I'm in about 20, 25 miles northeast of Dallas, Texas.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So northeast Texas. I was going to say we don't get a very long fall. Uh, we get it's winter and summer pretty much. So
Right, right.
spring and fall are very very short.
But for
We really only have like two
two or
seasons.
3 days, you get autumn leaves.
Right, exactly, exactly. And it's usually late November or mid to late November. So it's
Sure.
so we have that hot. We have cold and hot. We
Yeah.
pick one of the two. But yeah, well, where all did the band tour, and who did you play in support of, and other bands that were on the same bill?
Okay. Well, we were obviously very hopeful that we get to the US, and that never happened. But we toured all over the UK for the 3.5 years I was with the band, um, and we played we played alongside some big names. Um, the first time I just joined the band, and the decision was taken to do the Isle of Wight festival that year. It must have been 1970, I think, without me, because it was early in the rehearsal stage and we were focusing on the album. Um, uh, so they did that as a three-piece. But of course, that meant they supported Dylan, they supported Hendrix. I remember Gareth. I think might have been the '68 Isle of Wight. I can't remember, but he particularly liked Jefferson Airplane, who were high up
Okay.
the bill too. So we were alongside bands like that, and I've been going through my diaries, my early diaries recently, because I'm putting a book together with the
Oh,
help
oh,
of a
okay. All
writer
right.
now, which
All
is
right.
quite, it concentrates the mind. But um, who do I remember? We shared same billing with Genesis, with Wishbone Ash. We supported Deep Purple a couple of times. My biggest sort of claim to fame is the one occasion where Fleetwood Mac supported us.
Yes, yes.
but, but to put that in proper context, of course, that was when things had not worked out well for them. They'd lost Peter Green and Jeremy Spencer, had kind of both gone missing for different reasons. So that band, it would only have been John and Christine McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and Danny Kerwin, the young guitar player. And it was just on the edge of them. I think they'd taken the decision to leave the UK and they were going to head for the USA. But Blonde on Blonde certainly were topping that bill. It was a festival in a place called Keighley in Yorkshire, I think,
Okay.
or Lancashire, one or the other. Got
Okay.
it. Um,
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, it's a kind of arrogance, but
Yeah.
I remember when we were mixing our first album, um, Status Quo were mixing some stuff of theirs,
Yeah.
uh, and I remember discussing it afterwards. They were about to lose their contract because they couldn't come up with a hit single, and
Uh-huh.
I think it was their road manager played a bit of harmonica on one of the tracks, and that became a hit, and that changed everything.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
uh, we kind of saw Led Zeppelin as a direct rival,
Yeah. Oh,
and
is that right? Is that
well,
right?
yeah. Robert Plant turned up 3 times, I think, at my gigs
Yeah.
because he was checking me out. I know that.
He was. He was.
Yeah, but hey, he won
seeing
out.
what
Well done.
seeing what he could glean off of you. Huh? Yeah, how interesting. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Wishbone Ash and also Status Quo. Status
Oh
Quo.
yeah,
I like their dueling guitars, the twin guitars,
it
and
works, doesn't it? It's simple.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, it does. Yes, it does. I've always
and
enjoyed
Wishbone Ash dueling guitars as well,
exactly both
in,
bands, right?
in a different way, but two guitars. Yeah,
Yeah, yes. Well, you would also play on the third album, Reflections on a Life, also on Ember, and Sad Song for an Easy Lady. That's a nice track. That's a nice track. And that's you on harmonica, right?
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You play harmonica on that one. Yeah. I like
Yeah.
that one. Yeah.
Well, but by the time we got to that third album, we were kind of on our way out, really. Um, we weren't getting the support from the record company that we needed, and they put us in the studio. What they wanted us to do was to come up with a hit single. Well, we weren't a singles band at all, and things were changing.
Yeah.
People like Elton John were getting through, and it was kind of like the industry was taking back control from a lot of the very experimental rock
Right.
bands that
It,
had
was-
that had
it,
burst
it,
through in the
it was
70s.
that era of the singer-songwriter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. James Taylor and Carol.
Right. Right.
Oh, yeah, but they were great. I mean, in a different way. Things and Joni Mitchell. I
Yeah.
remember hearing the album Blue, and I thought,
Oh,
I,
I know.
there's no
What an
way I
album.
can compete with this.
Right. It was a different era. It
It
was.
was, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also like, you mentioned Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin.
Hmm.
the bargain, the track "The Bargain." It reminds me of of the bluesier side of Led Zeppelin. Uh,
Yeah, you can see in that third album basically because we'd been put in to record two singles. Well, as soon as they heard the two tracks that we said might be singles, they said these aren't singles. Why don't you just finish an album? And of course that happened really quickly. We were recording in Rockfield Studio, which was down in Monmouthshire, near where we were based in South Wales then.
right.
Uh, so all of a sudden, it was time to get writing again, and I think I probably took the lion's share of the writing for that third album, which inevitably just came back to a much bluesier, folkier feel. We had Graham Davis with us on bass guitar then, but he was a really excellent acoustic guitar player, and Gareth Johnson, who'd been an exceptional guitar player. Clapton used to come and check him out in the early days, I know, because he was so unique, with a just a mixture of kind of rock and roll and classical feel. But I couldn't do that, and Gareth had pretty well decided that he was going to pull out of the band, which he did. And he got married and he did a degree in structural engineering and architecture and became the UK's expert in brick technology. Very intelligent man.
Did he? Okay.
But
Okay.
so that third album,
Yeah.
I read, we read reviews about it saying that we'd lost our creative direction. We had to an extent, um, but we had fun piecing things together, and
Yeah.
it was a bit bluesier because
Yes.
that was my
Well,
thing.
well, I wanted to mention one thing. When you mentioned Rockfield, I thought of Dave Edmunds. Have you heard lately? How's he doing?
The latest I've heard is he's made a remarkable recovery. He had some sort of heart failure or heart attack.
Yeah.
I believe he's at home now,
Okay.
and in the safe hands of his wife, thank God.
Yes, good. Well, they were afraid there might be some brain damage and things like that, and
Yeah,
but I hope, but I've heard that too from another person I talked to said that he looks like he's recovered pretty nicely, pretty
oh,
well.
that's great. Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
is, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That was scary when first came out about that. Yeah. Well, one track.
I
Okay.
have a great friend. Sorry, I have
Oh,
a
go
great
ahead.
Hugh Gregory who plays guitar with me now, but
Yeah.
he has this wonderful phrase. He's talking about people of our age, and he said, "We're all in Indian territory now. You know you're going to get it. You just
Yeah.
don't know when or
Yeah.
how. But you know you're going to get
You're gonna get it. I like
it."
that. I'm gonna use that now. Yeah, right. I like that. Well, my favorite track on there, and it goes back. It's the more melodic, the chorale forever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a nice one. So it's kind of like going back to Castles in the Sky.
Yes.
That
Yes. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
melody.
Yeah.
Melodious.
We were still a mix, and there seemed to be a kind of tradition of ending an album with something emotional and anthemic. Really, I suppose is the word.
Yes, that's a good word,
Yeah.
anthemic. Well, what eventually brought the band to an end?
Uh, um, I think the lack of support from the record company, the fact that things were moving towards hit singles and pop, was underlying all of that stuff. I think if we'd hung on, if we could have hung on, it might have been different. But um, we were just out of money. We just couldn't go much further without that, and we we had a disastrous gig. We were scheduled to play at a big festival in Ghent in Belgium, and it was the journey from hell. It was at the time of the big Ford strike. We had a Ford Transit van, and the only way that we could get it to shift was you could get it through the gears, but then you'd have to get in there with a huge screwdriver to kind of dismantle it again and start
Oh,
again.
is
And
that right?
how the hell we got to go
How
there, I
did
don't
you
know.
how did you manage?
We got on the late ferry. We got to the festival just in time to see all the massive crowds coming out,
Oh,
and
leaving.
yeah, and so we had to turn around,
Oh,
battle our way back to the ferry to get back to a gig the next night somewhere in the north of England, and we got I don't know halfway up the M1, and a 6-inch nail went through two of the back tires just at the same moment. We didn't even make that gig. We had to spend the night in a hotel, which we couldn't afford. We had to bus it back to Wales. That was the killer trip, and we never
oh,
quite got over that.
oh, wow. I think all bands have had that.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
tour
They
from
say
hell.
they say musical differences. No, it was a combination of the Ford strike, a 6-inch nail, and a tendency for these guys to fall down and give in and get married.
Yeah.
And have to go
Yeah.
straight.
Right, right, right. Well, life does get in the way sometimes.
Yeah,
It does, yeah. Well, you moved to London in '72,
yeah,
and then you ended up auditioning for and got the job as the lead singer in the band Rain.
yeah. Yeah, that was great. That was a real new beginning for me. Rain was a band that was put together by a great guitar player called Robin Le Mesurier, and he was the son of John Le Mesurier, who's a famous British actor, and his wife Hattie Jakes, who's also a famous British comedic actress, film stuff really. Um, and it was a great new start. Um, but they were kind of rich boys I'd joined up with, and I wasn't. I still had to keep body and soul together by working on building sites, and I'd get to the rehearsals at their place in Earl's Court, and sometimes they would have spent most of the day smoking funny cigarettes, and it was slower progress than I would have. If it were my band, I'd be driving harder. But having said that, it was a great experience. Um, and there were two wonderful girl singers, Debbie Doss from St. Louis, who is still a great friend today, but we shared a house in London with a load of other artists, photographers, actresses, actors, musicians, civil engineers. Also, we made a kind of family of young.
I was going to say kind of a communal kind of thing.
It was a
Yeah,
real family thing.
yeah, yeah.
And the other singer that joined the band was a lady called Shirley Roden, who, and it was completely accidental. She'd been to the same grammar school that I went to, and she came along and auditioned, and from the same hometown, and so we worked together for quite a while, which was great. Um, uh, but after 18 months, and we were waiting for the big break, but Robin came into the rehearsal studio and he said, "I got some great news." He said, "We're going to be the Wombles." Do you know who the Wombles are? Have you heard of the Wombles?
I have heard of the Wombles,
They
yes.
they were they were like stuffed puppets on the
Yeah,
telly. They were a
yes,
huge
yeah,
success,
yeah.
and I can't tell you what I said. I cannot tell you what I said. But basically, apart from the expletives, well, I'm leaving. I'm leaving the band, and I left then, which was
Okay.
probably career suicide because Robin went on to play lead guitar for Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
The girls joined the Kinks and did 5 tours of the States, and I
Yeah.
was left on my knees packing grand pianos and carpets for Harrods back in London.
Oh,
And
were you? That's kind of like you
yeah,
did.
it's a blues life.
Yes, yes. You're in deep in that lives. Yes,
Yeah.
you were. Well, who you mentioned earlier, Hugh Gregory. How did you two meet?
We met on a building site. That's exactly
Oh,
how we
is
met.
that right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
He was much more capable than I was. He'd been trained on a farm, and by his father, who was a farm manager, and he was a very competent carpenter and stuff like that. And I was just a jobbing labourer. But we realised we had a love of blues in common. He absolutely idolized Rory Gallagher, the Irish.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
And, and I said, look, I've had it with rock music. I just want to play blues. And there was still quite a strong folk club circuit in the UK then. So we used to get back after our day's work on the building sites and rehearse as long as we could stay awake. And we pulled together a really tight acoustic blues duo.
Yeah.
And we toured the UK for 4 or 5 years, um, which was, yeah, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, that sounds like fun. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, Rory was in Taste. Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
band
yeah.
he was in. Yes. Did he play in Skid Row as
Uh,
well, or no?
I don't know. That was Gary
No,
Moore, wasn't it? I
that
think.
was Gary. That was Gary Moore. Okay,
Yeah, he made that shift.
okay. So yeah, I was trying to make a connection there back to your being in Skid Row, and then Hugh liking
Nice,
Rory.
nice idea, but no.
It doesn't work.
I
I
mean,
went.
the thing that's certainly very, very true is that that there was a strong drive and a lot of talent coming out of Ireland and out of Wales, as previously it had come out of, Liverpool with the Beatles and yeah, and London with the Stones. In big cities were generating points for an awful lot of music, mostly by kind of working class lads, really, um, transitioning blues and rock and roll and kind of inventing their own route in rock, really. Um, it was a vibrant time.
Yes, yes, and then in Scotland as well. So
Of
not,
course,
you know,
absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
Lo- London wasn't the center anymore.
No, not at all. And in Scotland you had well, the incredible string band,
Incredible string band. Yes.
Bert Jansch, a little
Oh,
bit, a little
what a
bit,
guitarist! What a
oh,
yes, yes.
a little bit later. John Martin came out of Scottish background, sort of mixed with London.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a quick little story. My first gig with Shortstuff, we played at the Half Moon in Putney, and I was kind of used to being on a big stage because it's more impersonal and they're usually bright lights shining at you. So there's no time for nervousness, not really, or not much, and then you're in it. With a raging rock band behind you.
Yeah.
This was very different. It was just a couple of Fender amps, a couple of old acoustic guitars, electrified, but really it was much much more acoustic stuff. And the first gig we did, I was obviously just nervous like you always are with a new lineup, new material. Although not a lot of it was original, we were playing blues covers and Ry Cooder stuff and JJ Cale stuff, that sort of thing. But in the front row, I recognised three faces, and I thought, oh my god, I was about 3 feet away from Bert Jansch, Ralph
Oh,
Ralph McTell, and John Renbourn, and they
oh.
they, they were just checking my every move, and I thought, God, if I can get through this, I can get through more of that.
Right,
I was
right.
I was nervous.
Oh, I would be too if I had seen them. Or
The only thing I had in my favour, which would have baffled all three of them, was the fact that I'm left-handed and I play guitar upside down without restringing. So that would have
okay.
foxed them a little bit.
Oh, how interesting. Okay, that's a story that's come out here. I didn't realize. I didn't
Mm.
realize that. Okay. All right. Yes. Well, yeah, to see some, people kind of like your idols in a way, right there in front of you. It's like, wow, that's got to be, and
Yeah, and all exceptional acoustic guitar players.
there you go. Exactly. Well, they were there to see you. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, who
No,
was in?
no, they were there because the beer was damn good.
Okay.
Not only was it good beer, it was Young's beer in a Young's pub, and it was the best beer, and it was the cheapest in London as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
whether they really came to see me, I doubt it.
Okay. Well,
I could
you
dream.
can, you can dream, you can
Yeah,
pretend.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, right, right. Well, interesting, a beer. There was, I think it was an American band they called themselves Free Beer, you know,
Great.
And you can
Great idea.
imagine,
Yeah, packed house
yeah,
every
exactly
night.
every time they played.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then when the fans found out it wasn't free, then
yeah,
they lost a lot of them.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Great
Yeah.
idea at the first
Gr-
part. Yeah.
Great advertising, great promo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who was in your band, Double Trouble?
Double Trouble. That was a brief attempt to get a proper blues band up and running.
Okay.
I had a friend on drums called Simon Aldridge. I had a great friend from Newport who I'm still close to called Keith Jones. There's the name Jones.
Yeah.
He was playing harmonica, I think, and maybe bass. I can't remember. But I had Gareth Johnson from Blonde on Blonde with that band briefly, playing guitar alongside me.
Okay.
And we were together a very short space of time, really. But the highlight for me was once playing in a London venue called the Canteen, which had been set up, I think, by an American guy, and I don't remember his name. He was a nice guy. He booked my band, um, and the same week, my one of my absolute heroes, Mose Allison, had
Oh,
appeared there.
yeah, yeah.
And I've lost it sadly, but I had this bill with Mose Allison, Double Trouble, and that was a lovely thing for me. Of course, inevitably, a couple of American guys, young American guys, turned up to see Double Trouble, expecting to see a guy called Stevie
Stevie
Ray,
Ray.
who,
Yes.
who at that stage nobody had any idea, who, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the danger when you take a band title
Yeah.
from a blues song. It's from
Right.
a Otis
Yeah.
Redding,
Yeah.
and I wasn't the only one to think of it, like Skid Row. Okay,
Yeah. Right. Well,
but
you never heard from Stevie Ray, did you?
I went to
That-
see him years later, and
oh,
I loved it. I really did.
oh, yeah,
I
yeah. But
did.
he didn't contact you about the name Double Trouble. You didn't hear him. Okay.
No, I mean he hadn't made it at that stage. I was there before him.
You were before. Okay, I should
Yeah,
have asked. You
well,
heard.
or maybe it was around the same time, but he hadn't made it really big. So
Okay.
maybe I should have sued him first.
I was gonna say, you missed out on that one.
I know. Opportunities I have missed. Number 329.
Right, right. It would be like David and Goliath. Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. Well, we'll talk a little about the rock opera that you and James Litherland were
yeah.
asked to take part in. By the way, did you happen to see my interview with James Litherland?
I haven't.
Okay, okay.
Is that a recent one?
No, 2 years ago now,
Oh,
July of 2023. I'll send you so you don't have to scroll. I'll
oh,
send you
please.
the link to it after this. I'll send you the
Yeah,
link to
yeah.
it.
We're still in touch because
Okay, good.
he
Yeah,
and I attempted to put a band together as well, but of course we were like two peas in a pod. We were like mirror image of each other. So hey,
it didn't
but
work.
we're good friends.
Yeah. Well, what was that? The rock opera. Talk a little bit about
The,
that.
the rock opera. It was a big rock opera, and it was written by a guy called Adrian Snell, um, who I think was the son of the then Bishop of Southwark, and it was Christian rock stuff. And it just happened that a lot of the recording work had been done in a studio called Redan Studios, and Shirley Roden, one of the girl singers that worked with me in Rain,
Right.
her partner was the guy that ran that studio, and she was involved in pulling together a choir really to take part in that rock opera because it was a big sort of symphonic thing. And I can't remember the name of the album, but there was an album that already existed, and it was obviously a massive Christian theme.
Yes.
So
Didn't it have Jesus in it? Wasn't that in the title, or was?
I think so.
I think that rings a bell. When doing the research, I
It's
didn't.
hardly, it's
I didn't
hardly.
type it down. I didn't
But,
type it here, but
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was just the hired hand. But funnily enough, just a day or two ago, I found the hand scribbled note that I got from John, who ran the studio, saying that they didn't want me to just sing in the choir. They wanted me to sing the Song of Simeon, which was it was the penultimate song of the whole rock opera. And that I mean, man, that was an experience because I continued to play a lot, but I'd gone back to playing in folk clubs. I wasn't doing anything on any great scale. And when I got to Knebworth, to this, which was huge, stately home, with a vast ground where they were famous for rock concerts, the Knebworth rock concert. When I got to do the thing as Simeon, earlier that day I would have been, or the day before, I would have been just sitting at my desk at work,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm in this different situation. James Litherland was one of the singers too. Shirley was there, but there must have been, I don't know, tens, 20s of singers altogether. It was a big thing. But when I got to do this Song of Simeon, it was dark by the time I did that, and it was before the big finale thing. And I remember walking out onto the stage, and there were two keyboard players playing with me. One was, on that side of the stage, there, and the other on that side of the stage, but so far away you could hardly see their faces, And I just remember thinking to myself, you must be crazy, because I was staring at the audience, and there were 25,000 people at that festival.
Oh,
And I sang this song, and at the end of the song, I think it seemed like the whole audience, they all lit candles and lighters, so there was this display of light. And a lot of rock concerts, you'd be expecting the odd can of lager to fly past your ear.
yeah.
They were all dressed in black leather, looking fierce, but they were all lovely Christian folk, and they meant no harm. So it was a magical experience. It really was. Yeah.
Oh, wow. What a memory. What a
But a
memory.
one-off thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was 1986. Years with a six at the end tend to be big years for me. I don't know why.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I tend to be.
Yeah. Are you into numerology at all?
No, no, no.
Okay. I just wanted to look into that and see what
I, I observe coincidences, but
uh,
whether it's more than that or
yeah, yeah, right, right.
I'm just
Well,
grateful when it's a good year.
right. Well, speaking of, I'm going to make a segue here. Speaking of the band Rain, who did you rein in for the Diplomatics?
The Diplomatics. That was a really serious London blues band that I worked with over 7 years, I think. And golly, there was a venue in London called the Station Tavern, which was famous. It was at the time. I'm talking about we're in the 80s now, late 80s, but the 80s. It was the only venue in Europe that was sort of blues and nothing but blues every day of the week. So it was a real centre for blues musicians again. And we picked up the job of the main Thursday night slot, which was a good night really to play. When I first put the band together, it was with Jeff Peel on guitar, great guitar player. We're talking about London musicians really here. Jeff Peel, a guy called Lawrence Garman, but Lawrence Garman, a superb harmonica player, who I think he played with some of the big names in his time, including Freddie King. He was a Brit, but he's still around, Who else did I have? I had this wonderful bass player called Spy Austin, who is a Londoner. He's from Battersea, but he's a black guy. But I taught him to play blues because he'd worked with Desmond Decker and the Aces, so he was a ska reggae man really.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
But
Okay.
then a little bit later, I loved working with Spy because he was just such a funky player, and he and I could sing pretty well together. He did great harmony stuff, but we decided to go a bit more really roots bluesy, and we took on Charlie McCracken on bass, who was the original bass player with Rory Gallagher's Taste.
Okay. There
So
you go.
yeah, so two great players, bass
There's
players.
that connection. There, you finally made that
Yeah,
connection.
yeah, but over a 7 year period. Yeah,
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was several years. Yes,
yeah.
and he produced the album Shotgun Blues.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Yeah.
There is another album which I've found, but it's on a cassette tape. That's all I have really. One of these days I might make the effort and turn
Yeah.
that into a digital CD. I don't know.
Yeah. Master it, remaster it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's that.
It would make that work, but it would be nice to have.
Yeah, it sure would. It sure
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
Well, fast forwarding, your first solo album, Cold Harbor, released in 2004. Yes.
Yes. I mean that album took me. So I think took took 42 years to get that out.
Oh, is that right?
42.
42
It,
years.
well, because really the Cold Harbor album is the album that perhaps I would have put out as the last Blonde on Blonde
Blonde
album,
on Blonde. Yes. Yes.
because it's not a blues album. It's a rock folk album. There's not much blues on it at all. It's nearly all original material. The one cover I did was "It Just Doesn't Matter Anymore," which was the big hit for Buddy Holly, 50
Buddy.
miles.
Yes. Yes.
He
Well,
didn't
did
write. He
any
didn't write.
no, no. It was
Paul
Paul
Anka.
Anka. Paul
Yeah,
Anka.
but
Right.
I learned that late.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I put that on the album because
Yeah.
it was that resulted in me getting asked by Paul McCartney to play for him
Yes. I wanted to talk.
years later again.
Yes,
But
I wanted to definitely talk about that. The interesting, yeah, that you said that. Uh, did any fans or people that heard the album mistaken it for Blonde on Blonde album? Did they think it
no,
was? No, they didn't. Okay, I was just
no. I put it out on my own little label, very definitely as a Dave Thomas album.
all right.
But it took me a long time to actually get it out there for a number of reasons. But long before the album came out, the first track on it was the thing that Paul McCartney heard, and Paul McCartney was a lifelong fan of Buddy Holly, and he used to have a special event at one point every year to celebrate the life and death of Buddy Holly, and this particular year he was looking for people that had done original cover versions, but in their own style, and there was a national competition, and I got in the top 10 and all of that.
Oh,
But
okay.
I got to meet Paul McCartney, and they put me and my wife up in a hotel. We rehearsed with the band the night before, and then played at the Texas Embassy,
Yeah.
which
See,
which is really there still.
still,
Um,
see that's something I'm learning a little history about my own state. You
yeah,
know, today doing
it's
this.
just off
When I did
Trafalgar Square.
right
Yeah,
when I
but it's a restaurant these days, I think. Yeah.
yes, yes. But doing the research for this, I was unaware of that. It
Yeah.
was the site of the former legation of the Republic of Texas from 1842 to 1845,
That's right.
prior to Texas joining the Union.
Yeah.
It was before that there was a legation there in London. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. See,
Uh,
I didn't know that. I did.
uh,
I
No, I had no idea either. But
yeah, yeah.
but
So there's a
that's one of the wonderful things about music. It makes you make connections. A lot of them, just friends and all the rest of the stuff. But sometimes you connect with some big things, really big things.
right,
Parts of history that otherwise would have, been in well, you would have been
yeah,
completely unaware of.
right.
Great.
We learned, we had Texas history in school, but they didn't teach us about that. I don't remember hearing about that if they did. I don't think they did. Yeah.
I guess they didn't know.
Yeah, that could be. That could be as well. Well, that's really, really fascinating. The things that I learned doing these. So for those out there watching this, a little Texas history there. Yeah. Well, you also released a couple of more albums, Blues for Otis, a tribute to Otis Spann that you had mentioned previously. I'm sure you're familiar with Otis's album, The Biggest Thing Since Colossus.
Yes,
Yeah, where
I got it.
Fleetwood Mac members backed him on that
Yeah,
one.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yes, yes, yeah.
My favourite album by Otis Spann is it's called The Blues Never Die.
Okay.
And basically, it's Muddy Waters band without Muddy Waters. So it's Otis doing most of the singing, but James Cotton doing quite a lot on that album as well.
James
With,
Cotton.
yeah,
Wow. Yes.
great.
Another talent. Yes. What a
Yeah,
talent there he
yeah.
is. Well, how did you come to work with Wallace Coleman on the double album Repossession Blues?
Okay, this takes me on to a whole different phase. When I put out the Blues for Otis album, and there was another one as well called Black Dog Boogie,
Black Dog Boogie. Yes.
and the
That was a
main
live. That was a live album, right? Black Dog
Black
Boogie.
Dog it was a live gig, and Blues for Otis was recorded in my old farmhouse using my daughter's piano,
Oh,
which
okay.
we stripped down while she was away at school. And when
You
she
did.
came back and saw all the microphones hanging out of this lovely old Beckstein that I'd bought for her, tears came straight away.
Oh,
And
oh, did
I said, "Don't worry, darling, we can put it all back together." But, um, but the piano player working with me on both those albums, he's a world-class piano player, Boogie Woogie. He was Boogie Woogie first, and I got him into the blues more. His name's James Goodwin. And those two albums really got extremely great reviews in a publication called Blues and Rhythm in the UK. But it's a pretty serious magazine, almost 100% about black blues. So the fact that we got reviewed at all was amazing, and they were such great reviews. It encouraged me, to up the ante a little bit, I guess.
Yes, yes.
That's how that went.
Okay, yeah. It authenticated you.
So yeah, I'm sorry to join that to Wallace Coleman.
Yeah.
Because of the success with those albums, I got to know the reviewer, a guy called Phil White. That was it, and he said that I really ought to get in touch with a guy called Gerard Homan, who he knew of as a really dedicated blues enthusiast who was putting on concerts, inviting very often very obscure black American artists over to the UK to do maybe one or two concerts under a banner called Shakedown Blues.
Okay,
And
Shakedown. Yeah.
yeah, so that was that link. And one of the first concerts I went, because I just love blues harmonica. I wanted to see Wallace Coleman, and I pulled up with my girlfriend Bonnie Bell. She was like my minder at the time. Then she was lovely. But we pulled up, and Gerard, who I'd met once already at a Frank Ace concert that he'd put on, he came rushing out into the car park, and he said, "Have you got a guitar in the back of your car?" And I said, "No, Gerard." I said, I've just come to enjoy the concert." He said, "I thought all guitar players had the guitar in the back of their car."
Carry
And I
it with
said,
them.
"Well, why? What's wrong?" And they had a bit of a problem. The previous night they played in the Big Arts Centre in Stamford in Lincolnshire, and it was a 2-hour concert. And Gerard's sort of house band were a bunch of very, very talented jazz musicians. But I mentioned the 4-letter word here, jazz. And the problem they had was that they didn't know blues. And to play the simplest of blues, Jeremy, their guitar player, who had a better idea, had to write out the scores, like score for a 12-bar blues, so that takes a lot of the feel and spontaneity away from it. It became impossible. And the other thing, of course, the gig I was at was the regular wonderful gig in the village hall where Gerard lived, Caister Village Hall, or Castor Village Hall, sorry. And it was an L-shaped room, and they would have 3 separate hour sets. And in one of the bits of the L-shape, the dancers would gather, and the rest of it was a sit-down concert. So, but it was full on, and 3 solid hours of music, and they just didn't have enough material. So I sort of,
Oh,
look, I don't have a guitar with me, but I can get up with the band and I can sing a few, and sort of we can stretch out the set that way. And I just, of course, Gerard introduced me to Wallace, and he said, well, looking at me, with that dubious look that a lot of the black folk have, not surprisingly, when they're looking at some, little white Welsh guy
yeah.
who's being volunteered to help them, get through a gig and you've never met. And he said, well, what do you know? What do you like? And I said, Sonny Boy Williamson, Little Walter. And he beamed. Get him
He
on
lit
the
up. Yeah.
stage with me.
Yeah.
And we just hit it off straight away,
Yes.
man. We really did. And then he invited me out to Cleveland, where he lives now this
Oh,
day.
okay.
He invited me out to a concert where Robert Junior Lockwood was doing a big show, opening a new public library, um, right in the centre of Cleveland. Robert Junior Lockwood being the stepson of Robert Johnson.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. All right.
And Robert Junior Lockwood had been honoured, I think, in Congress for his contribution to blues music since the late 40s. Robert Junior was the guy that played guitar on some of the early stuff with Little Walter.
Oh, okay.
Played magical guitar parts to really bring it to life, And anyway, he invited me across to this concert where I got introduced to Robert Junior Lockwood, and that was.
That's special,
It's not for the air, really, I'm afraid. It was a very wonderful thing. A very, very dignified man. And that was in late 2005, the year that I'd met Wallace. We decided when we were sitting out on his porch playing blues that we ought to put an album together. So I went back out in 2006. Did the album with him, Repossession Blues. And when I arrived to do the recording, he said he'd decided not to stop the recording, but Robert Junior was in the hospital. And Robert Junior Lockwood had hired Wallace to play with his own band, the All Stars. He'd been in that band for 10 years. He was the only harmonica player that Robert Junior ever used. Robert Junior hated harmonica players.
He didn't like him.
No, but Wallace could play all the positions and very, very subtle, wonderful tone, wonderful player. So anyway, I was there to record the album. The day after I arrived, they took me into the hospital with them. So I was by Robert Junior's bed. He'd had some sort of stroke or a fall, or pretty catastrophic thing had hit him. And I was just there with his own family and some of the band, and I was completely accepted as just part of the family. They were lovely, and so we carried on with the recording, and he obviously couldn't. Robert Junior couldn't do his own regular gig at Fat Fish Blue, so they invited me to front his band, this great venue called Fat Fish Blue, while I was there. We finished the album, which turned out to be a double CD. We just recorded so much. And the day before I was due to leave, there was 2 days before I was due to leave, Robert Junior Lockwood passed away.
Mm.
And the day that I was leaving, the weather changed all across the states and cancelled my flight together with loads of other ones, with stuff coming up from your neck of the woods or Missouri and Mississippi all the way up to Cleveland. It's scary sometimes.
Yes,
I
yes,
know,
it
I
is.
know it's a big country, but the weather joins it all together in a wild kind of way,
Uh-huh. Yeah, it
which,
is. Yeah.
which resulted in me having to stay another day until I could get my rebooked flight. But
Yeah.
that was wonderful because that enabled me to attend Robert Junior Lockwood's funeral at the great
Right.
church in Cleveland, where I saw Honey Boy Edwards and Robert Robert Johnson's own son, who's a lawyer from California or something like that. He was there, and Wallace was there, of course. But again, I was just like part of the accepted family. So my kind of spiritual home in the USA, it's by default is Cleveland, Ohio.
It's like,
I've got this great
right.
T-shirt which they gave me,
Yeah.
which I'd love to wear. It says, Cleveland, nobody likes us, and we don't care.
We don't care.
but
Well,
but
that makes
they've just been so
yeah,
wonderful to me. I-
it's a rock city. It's right. That reminds me of Ian Hunter,
yeah,
Cleveland Rocks, and and I
yeah.
think he kind of that's like his home away from home, there, and it's a very but that's a nice story. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't
No,
mean.
not at all. No, but
Yeah.
I will say this because I'm just so proud. Um, they gave me an official citation from the city of Cleveland for my services to the blues. In fact, I've got two different.
Oh, okay.
And one of my great friends who was born and bred in Cleveland said, Citation, you got an official citation from my city.
Yeah.
He said, the only citation I've ever got from my city is a speeding ticket.
Eating that sounds about right for me too.
Well,
Probably a lot of people. Well,
no, so anyway, sorry to round it
no,
off.
no,
I,
no. That's
I ended up being asked by Gerald Homan to be the main band leader then.
okay.
And I worked with him for the next 10 years. And then we went on another five years, I think 15 years in all. So I worked with, around 40 Black American blues players here in the UK,
Yeah.
including Mud Morganfield. He did his first non-USA gig at Shakedown Blues. So that launched him
Okay. So
on,
that's
on, on his own late career, which is great.
right. Right. It's never too late. Yeah. Well,
No, no,
there's actually a city in the UK, Cleveland. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, you'll find that most of the cities began this side of the pond.
That's right. I was
There's a
going to
little
say.
place called Pennsylvania. There's a little
Yeah.
village near me called California. So
Yeah.
tiny little village on the edge of the sea.
Yes. Yes. We did.
Charleston, hey,
Right. We
Richmond,
got.
Virginia.
We did. We tend to take those names from across the pond. Not real original with names over here.
Maybe.
Yeah. York, we added the new.
Yeah, you
You
did.
know,
You
it's
did.
it's a newer version. Yeah. Well,
Well, the one thing, talking about history, did you know that the first defeat of the British Navy, do you know where that took place?
I don't recall.
It took place on Lake Erie.
Oh, okay. Okay.
British Navy were defeated on Lake Erie
Yeah.
by the Americans during, with 18 whenever it was,
Okay.
the the big revolution. You know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah, when you committed the grand treason, you guys,
I was just gonna look that real Lake Erie because that Erie sounded familiar. Uh okay. Commodore Perry. Yes, that's what I was thinking of when you said that.
yeah,
Yes,
well,
led his to a decisive victory over the British squadron.
yeah,
Yes, yes, and they got control of the lake.
yeah.
Okay, right. That's what it was. When you said Erie, I thought there was a commander or some general. And it was, yeah, Perry. That's the one. That's
Yeah,
the one.
you got it.
Wow. Wow.
He was
Okay.
a he was a real wild boy. They gave him one last chance, and he pulled it off.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay. You got to come through on this one. Or we're demoting you, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. We'll talk about how you and Dave Greenslade met up.
Okay. Right. I back in the Blonde on Blonde days, um, John Heisman's Colosseum was on the road, and I know that we shared a couple of gigs then, and I remember seeing and hearing that band. Um, and to be honest, I wished I was James Litherland. He got the top job, because for my taste they were this wonderful fusion between jazz and blues, and I love that area. But of course, they were a rock band, so we knew of each other, or I knew of him, put it that way. But park that. Um, when I live now in Norfolk, now right in the city centre in Norwich, but I lived in the countryside for many years, and I used to do a regular gig in a place called the Fisher Theatre, which is in a lovely little market town in Suffolk called Bungay, and Bungay just happens to be where Dave kind of semi-retired to, having spent most of his career working in London or Birmingham, all over. And he just came along to one of my gigs one night, particularly liked my voice, I think, and he just said, "Look, I think it would be great if we could record together at some stage." But he was just coming up to the last big international European tour with John Heisman's Colosseum, which had reformed, after many years. And so it took us quite a while to get that first album finished. And I'm delighted with the results. There are sort of mechanical issues attached to that which aren't of any great interest, but I think we made a mistake signing to the wrong record company because they didn't really get behind it. But it was pretty good because I signed that since Blonde on Blonde I'd never signed a record contract, and I was 70 signing a record contract for a rock
Right.
album, which is it did the ego good.
Right. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but before that, I'd had my two albums. First, One More Mile,
1 mile. Yeah.
and then Road to the Blues, which I
Yeah.
issued in 2021 and 2022. Both of them got to number one in the roots music charts in the UK.
Right.
Both of them got into the top 10 in the USA in blues and contemporary blues charts. Um, One More Mile even got to number five in Australia, which was, pretty
Yeah.
weird, really.
Yeah.
And so I've had a good run, really.
Yeah. You never know where your music's going to reach, how far reaching it can be, like you said, like that. Yeah.
And small world. Um, I use a very fine PR specialist who specialises in blues. Really, she lives in Memphis. She's a lady called Betsy Brown, and her company is Blind Raccoon. And she gets behind my albums and just makes sure they get as much radio play as they can worldwide. And she's very, very good at doing that, which is why I get in these charts. Sadly, it's not sales, it's plays.
Yeah.
But that's okay because the last time I was over there in 2022, I was touring and playing a bit in the southern states of America. Came into Atlanta, Georgia, then we spent time in Alabama, then went up to Memphis, Tennessee, on to Nashville, then back up to the Chicago Blues Festival, where I've performed quite regularly over the years, which is lovely. But the latest album, Road to the Blues, at that point I was really pleased. It was number one in the UK, and in the UK, it's not just a blues chart. It's UK artists. So I was in the number one slot. Creeping up behind me, there was some guy called Paul McCartney. Some, somewhere creeping up even further back, but fast, some guy called Eric Clapton, uh, and
Okay.
a guy reached number seven, Ed Sheeran. Have you heard of Ed Sheeran?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you may.
he comes from Suffolk, just down the road here, and I'm a drinking buddy with his helicopter pilot. So
Oh, okay.
so his helicopter pilot in his flight bag
He
has
does.
has my last two albums,
Oh,
and he when he gets the chance, he's going to
yeah.
say, Ed, he's the one that kept you out of the number one.
He doesn't fly helicopters after you guys drink, does he?
Well, the day after, yes, not
Okay.
not
After he waits a while.
or two. Yeah.
Okay, not
Remember
immediately.
that? Do you remember that Dean Martin special? What was it? When I drink, I don't drive. I don't even putt.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, he had some good one-liners. Yeah. And the Dean Martin roast, remember those? Yeah. Oh, yeah, where they would roast all the other comedians. And, well, wow. Well, that's something. I know I had reached out to Dave probably through Facebook, or maybe it's his own website if he has one, but I hadn't heard back. Yeah, that's somebody I'd really like to talk to.
Dave doesn't really engage with social media at all.
Okay.
No.
That may be the reason right there.
Yeah, he's in
Yeah,
reasonably good shape, but of course he's 82, 83 now.
yeah,
Um, and he and I are quietly working on the second album,
yeah,
which I hope will come out sometime next year.
yeah.
But his playing and his brain are in great shape.
Still,
But
still very
physically, he's quite frail these days. That's one.
okay, okay,
But
that's good. Well,
I'll make him aware of.
well, for what it's worth, for
Yeah,
what it's
yeah.
worth. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well,
you might be able to get something together because Dave's lady, a bit like mine, can handle the technology.
all right.
So
Yes,
it's
it,
worth us having
it's
a try. We'll have
it's
a
good. It's good to have, yeah,
yeah.
like you said, your wife or female there nearby to help out. Well, I wanted to a little feather in your cap. In 2023, you were the winner of the Independent Blues Award for Best Contemporary Blues Band
And all I didn't notice in the small print, it was also Best Contemporary Blues Album.
album.
Yeah, and that would have been this baby.
Yeah. Yes.
The,
Hold that up. Yes. Yes.
just
Yeah.
because I have it handy, this is the Greenslade album, G
Yes.
and T,
G&T. G&T. Yes. Yes.
and that's the one that was the 2021
Yeah.
big hit for me, really.
One mile. Right.
One More Mile, which
Well,
One More Mile is taken from um, the Blues Never Die album with James Cotton and Otis Spann.
right. Right.
It's all kind of
Well, talk briefly about your band. Who all's in that makes up?
um, okay. I since the lockdown, things have got quite difficult to do.
Okay.
I've got a lot of great musicians who live near me here in East Anglia in Norfolk. Um, but most of them, or all of them, they're younger than me. They've got families, they've got businesses or jobs. And I'm older, so I'm much more flexible. I can travel. But the way around that usually is I can always put a band together to help me in London because I've got connections there, including the main drummer, for example, on the Greenslade album is Brendan O'Neill, who also worked with Rory Gallagher
Okay.
back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
Great drummer. So I have a shadow band in London. I've got a shadow band in Wales, near my hometown, which is lovely. So I'm still able to do these things, but I'm doing um, I'm doing fewer band gigs these days than I used to, and I'm doing rather more solo acoustic gigs, which I'm really kind of enjoying.
Yeah.
So I play various festivals usually solo. I don't don't wheel a band out where travel is involved. It just doesn't work financially, really. Um, but I did a cracking gig just this last weekend at a local theatre in Suffolk. I'm very closely involved in a wonderful charity in Norfolk called
Oh,
Clink's Care Farm, and it's been set up by a wonderful couple from Holland. They're Dutch, but they came over here and they've got this care farm going, and it's an organic farm where they have animals and vegetable produce and everything you'd expect on a farm, but they invite people with learning difficulties to come and get involved in the farming,
oh, okay.
which is a fantastic thing. And some of the people that go along and join them end up in the world of real employment and and building their own careers despite all sorts of difficulties. So I do a couple of those. I do at least one of those a year. Big fundraising gig. Um, and Bonnie Bell, who I mentioned earlier, my dear friend, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and is now no longer with us. But when all of that was going on, I did a lot of charity fundraising concerts to help the Alzheimer's Society. So I can galvanise myself, if there's a real purpose to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, well, that's nice to give back like that, like you said. Yeah.
yeah, I'm so delighted that I've still got the ability to sing strongly as well.
Yes.
And it's good to be able to put a little bit back. Yeah.
Right. Do you take anything for your throat or for your voice? Do you?
No, not really. I, I, I smoked for several years and I stopped, thank God. And it was Bonnie Bell that helped me stop. That would have been very, very silly. Um, so no, I keep myself in reasonable shape. That's it.
Do you wear contacts? Just curious.
No, I wear glasses, but because I'm so close to the screen that
Okay. I was
they
gonna
don't go.
I was gonna say you're not wearing glasses. It's like okay.
There are the glasses.
Oh,
But,
okay. That's good.
but I
You're
have a new pair on order because
okay.
I can't see properly out of anything really.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought you might have contacts. You didn't have them
No,
on. Okay.
no, no. I'm too squeamish. Sort of
Okay. All right.
the body invaders. No, thank you.
Right. I like that.
But no, just another thought. I'm not devout in any sense, but I was brought up in the Baptist church, and that's really where I was encouraged to sing when I was very young. And that stuck with me. And I remember doing a couple of early concerts then, and a couple of people just saying, because I was playing blues, this kid playing this strange blues music. And I do remember a couple of times, a couple of them said, and they meant it really kindly, I know, they said, you really have got a talent there, but, make sure that you give something back to the Lord. I mean, it was that sort of thing, and I guess that's it, kind of engraved in me.
Yeah, yes. Well, that spiritual side, the blues has that spirit
Oh,
anyway. Yeah, yeah. It goes way back. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, it's been very interesting and rewarding, Dave. I've learned so much today too.
Well, thank you for giving me so much time.
Well, you're very welcome. This is I tell people, I talk to, I said, I like to just hit the record button and let you tell your story. That's what it's really about. You
That's
know,
good. That's
yeah,
good.
your journey, your musical journey. So, and
Well,
it's
my next big gig will be in November at the Tenby Blues Festival, which is Tenby is a beautiful port in Pembrokeshire in South Wales. Again, back in my sort of home country, it's lovely to go back there and do stuff, in the home country of Wales, which is great.
yes, yes. And there are parts of I've never been there, but that are gorgeous parts of Wales that are
Absolutely, yeah. The Gower Coast is
yeah,
stunning, and I don't know it well because I was born in Newport, which is on the east side of Wales, and of course my life went east. I went to London and Brighton and now Norwich and Norfolk, which is way on the east side of the UK.
Yeah.
But I do go back regularly these days to Wales and keep in touch with a lot of old friends, which is
Yeah.
it's important to try to do
Yes. Oh, yes,
that,
it is.
especially for a poor only child.
Right. You have lots of company, and you have had for years. So,
Yeah, yeah.
well, well, best of luck to you, Dave.
Thank you.
Continued luck. I mean, and success for you. And again on your live shows and any new recordings that come out. Do keep me posted, updated if
I will for sure. I've got two new albums that are due for release early next year, I think now.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
that'll
right.
be
Well, that's something for fans to look forward to there as well.
great.
Okay. All right. And you got to open a Wendy's in Wales. You gotta get around.
I'm just thinking about that. I'm thinking about.
Okay. All right.
I've already invented the logo. It'll be an upside down McDonald's.
Oh,
Yes.
right. Right.
They won't sue me, will they, Greg?
No, no, no. Do it in a different color, maybe, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. I'll do
you
it in
can.
blue.
There
It'll
you
be
go. You can get by with that. All right, all right, Dave. I've really enjoyed it, and
a pleasure.
I will say bye for now, but not forever.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
No, please
Oh, all righty. All
take
right.
care.
You
Bye.
too. All right. Bye bye for now.